Jerkovich.com. I'll be right back on 910 KINA Salina. Some of these were just, I mean, there were so many. There were, oh my goodness, there were like 1,700 Facebook likes, meaning, you know, just pass it on, you know, for that story, both of these stories. And you heard the one in North Platte, Nebraska, where the 2 kids were found in the cage. That was another one we talked about, and where Gina's interview goes up before this one. You know, we talked with her about that too. So
we have as a society got to just look at where are we putting our dollars. See, those countries that I'm talking about where the child welfare is so much better, is they put a lot more money into early childhood and protection of children than they do in military, and that'd go well if I just say that. But I'm just saying, you know, you have finite dollars. Do you want to put it in a prevention avenue where children are being raised and healthy, or very supported? Because you can have people who don't have any skills.
But you also think at some point some of that has to be sort of cost effective too.
It is cost effective. For every dollar you put into prevention like this, you're saving 8, 9, 10. You know, you get a child to enter school ready to learn that's been nurtured. Because their parent was nurtured along. They may not have been parented well, but if you had a home visitor that's there every week, supporting them, providing them with the latest information and how to, you know, deal with the things that that mother is dealing with, then you're going to have a child that's going to have a much better outcome.
Absolutely. Let's go back and start, and then we can let me know, Ben, when you're ready.
Whenever. Doing 8 minutes?
Yes. Welcome back, listeners. This is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show at 910 KINA Salina, wrapping up our conversation with Carolee Jones, the Executive Director of CAPS. Carolee, I have a question that I just feel really needs to come into play here. We even had baby Lisa up in Kansas City that's still missing. You know, the mother says, well, I had 5 glasses of wine, or 5 to 10. You know, we talked about on the Salina Post, the young mother who's now in jail for this 14-month-old baby's death. There were cut and paste on the comments from her Facebook page that said, I've got to quit getting high. What do you see about drugs entering into these situations and substance abuse?
It's that probably leading indicator for abuse and neglect of children.
It is.
It really is.
When you see that, you've already got a red flag up.
Oh, you have to, because a lot of neglect is going on. But you know, when you're stoned out of your mind, or 5 or 10 glasses of wine, I can just imagine. I mean, me and 5 glasses of wine, I'd be laying on the floor screaming.
I told you I wasn't going to talk about some of those parties we've been to together, so we are going there.
No, but I'm just saying.
What goes on there stays there, right?
Thanks, Joan. No, but I'm just saying, it is, you know, probably the number one.
Yeah, 5 glasses of wine, seriously. And does that did that lead you to think that she has to have been this wasn't the first time she was caring for her children? In
a drunken state.
In a drunken state.
Right. And as she said, I deserve my me time. I remember
my adult time.
Right. And, you know, everybody does need me time. I can attest to that. Which is why we run a respite child care center for low-income families, just to give them a break. So a mother or father can have 3 hours of time to themselves to do whatever they need to do and not have to be taking care of their child. You know, you can go more happily back to your children.
That's a huge service.
It is. It's very expensive.
And what hours does that run?
Well, we do it on Wednesdays, but we have such a long waiting list for low-income families to utilize that, and licensing constraints. But mostly it's a financial one for us now. The program itself costs, to just run 1 day a week, it costs more than $25,000, and it's not grant funded. So,
and how many children does that take?
Well, we are able to serve 24 children a week, and of those families, it's probably 19 families. It's just we certainly wish we could do more, but
it almost sounds like a needed service. But where's the funding?
There isn't funding for it, and that's why no one does it.
That has to be a huge frustration in your job, because some of the outtakes we're putting up on video show a lot of frustrations with all the budgetary issues, societal issues.
We
You
are-
must deal with these on a daily basis.
Yeah, and, you know, through no fault of our own, we develop these new programs or look at what are the best practices in the United States as far as serving children and families. And so we, implement those programs. And within 2 years, you don't have any grant funding or anything for them. And then you have to find local funding. But when your state and local governments are in the same situation as federal as far as the deficits are just too great. You know, we faced more than a $50,000 grant deficit this year that we had no idea we were going to be facing until like the last week of December. So, and that means a staff position. Somebody has to be eliminated, and we just couldn't do that. But the issue is,
Well, then the
it's
services
just
aren't made available because,
right. We had to cut back on the. We used to have that program 3 days a week for low-income families just to get a stress break. And yes, we know it's needed, but so is social work case management and counseling and one-on-one parent training and things like that. And we just had to focus on some core services when you do have cuts in your federal and state dollars that are grant funds. We are not a tax-supported organization, but we do get grants from the state of Kansas to provide services that they grant out to agencies like myself who know how to provide, evidence-based programming.
what are your programs that you say have the most impact and the most effect? Because you have to be making those decisions with your budgetary issues.
Well,
Give me two programs you think have the most impact on these societal issues.
well, it would have to be our family mentoring and parenting programs, which is the main crux of what we do. Through those two programs, you're in their home, working with really discouraged families, and you're providing social work case management for English and Spanish-speaking families. We're doing parenting education one-on-one based on what the family needs. So what we are essentially doing is, for some families, we are reparenting that parent who never got a good start herself or himself, and they need the skills or to develop the skills to parent their child appropriately. You know,
Is that all done by your staff, or do you have some volunteers that help?
No, that's our staff.
Okay.
We have 4 social workers and 3 parent educators that work for us, and 6 individuals have a master's degree in their level. So
wow.
we really have some highly trained individuals, but that's done by our staff. We sometimes put a volunteer with them or a student intern who's in social work or psychology from Kansas Wesleyan, you know, to go in and help the family, like provide maybe emotional support for them. But when it comes to skill-based and our nurturing parenting program, it's our staff-directed services.
Well, when you said mentoring, that made me think that you might pair them with other well-functioning families in some regard, but it's more just professionals.
It's
with-
professional mentoring,
Mhm,
yes.
Professional
yeah.
mentoring.
I think when we originally started the program, it was a volunteer basis. You know, putting grandparents into families is what it kind of was, to give them that support, you know, and intergenerational support.
Was that effective, or why did that kind of go by the wayside?
Well, the level of seriousness of the families that we're getting now, we hated to put that with volunteers, and it was effective when we weren't getting families that really need to be in
That is
family
so
preservation.
Frightening. I mean, you're
And
just
so-
basically speaking to the acuity and the tragedy that you're
Absolutely.
finding. I mean,
We're
you know, these
talking
aren't just
7
little
employees.
problems. These are big problems that need real professional people to deal with them.
But I want your listening audience to know that we can and do make a huge difference. That if we catch the family and they're willing, you know, what's the most important thing is that the case manager bonds with the family that they're working with. And when that occurs, it's a miracle what happens when we use the program it has been naturally tested to reduce child abuse and neglect risks, and to develop the parents' child development information, and to know that certain ages and stages, these things are normal, these things you have to deal with, and to be logical and have consequences for behavior that aren't abusive.
So Carolee, how do they get a hold of you as we close here? Tell us what they need to know, or give us a number.
All they have to do is call us at CAPS, and we're in the phone book under CAPS and Child Advocacy and Parenting Services. All of our services are free of charge. We can be reached at 825-4493. And, you may have just a simple parenting issue that you want to talk about. We've got parent educators that are willing to just talk to you and, maybe solve a small problem like
Right.
potty training. But if you have even more, don't feel like you'd be a burden to us, because that's what we're trained to do. We can get you free
So
counseling.
please call.
Please call.
Please call.
There's just no reason why another little baby like the Urbanic baby
I
that was
know.
killed. We just don't need that in our community. And I'm
So
saying
anyone
we've got
sees
services.
it, hears it, or in a situation yourself, please call Carolee. And thank you so much, Carolee, for
Thank you,
coming
Joan.
in. This is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show. This is Saturdays at 9 a.m. on 910 KINA Salina. I ended a little faster just because we went over a tiny bit.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Once I start talking.
Well, it's just too much to talk about. That's
It's horrific. It's what we
I-
deal
and-
with every day.
well, and
I'm going to the governor's conference right now,
Yeah.
though. So I'll
Okay.
get some R&R, and that's where the only place that
Yeah.
the social workers at
Mhm.
SRS get some R&R. They get to go to this conference for 2 days, get fed a nice meal. They don't have their
maybe
kids.
feel a tiny bit appreciated, I hope, or
Yeah.
not, but just
We
get a
do an
break.
appreciation though for the,
Mhm.
CAPS does at
Mhm.
Chris's place. We do an appreciation for the police investigators and the
Mhm.
Child Protective Service workers from SRS, because nobody else gives them any kudos.
That was one thing I did like about, the segment ahead of yours too, though, is where the SRS, we talked about, the dedication of the employees, and you have that too. You have that with your staff, because
Yeah. it's-
one of the things we talked about too, because one of the blogs that I mentioned in the first segment was, not with you here, but in the other segment with Gina, was that, the person that talked about these doctors that saw this little baby come in to the emergency room, and it was horrific. I mean, they had never seen anything like this before. And to see these horrific cases has to have a burnout factor.
Yeah.
You can only emotionally handle so much. Do you have some services to support your staff with some of the emotional?
Well, it's called vicarious traumatization,
Yeah.
and we do things like, the budget's terrible right now, but I'm taking one of my staff members who's really burned out right now, and she's going to the governor's conference with me, and I don't
Okay.
even care if she goes to the workshops.
She needs some
She
time
just needs
to
R&R. She's
process
gonna be in
and R&R.
2 days in a hotel,
Mhm.
and she's gonna go to the workshops, and I have to present at one tomorrow, but, you have to look at vicarious traumatization, and we do everybody's birthdays, so we have about 20 parties a year at noon.
Just acknowledge and recognize them.
Each
and
other
them
and-
as part
yeah.
of your team and all of
Mhm.
that, so.
Mhm.
Are we ever gonna cure any of this? Are we gonna, what's the next step? What can we do? I
We
mean,
have
don't you, in your position, you
Pisses
work
me
it all
off.
day, but I just, well, what can I do? And
Well,
I
we have
will
to
admit,
legislate
I will
for
be the
more
one to
early
call.
childhood.
If I see or hear something, I
call.
do not hesitate to call.
But call the police.
Some of the
don't
people
call
here had talked about,
SRS.
well, that's a good point, call the police and not, why would you say that? Just
Because it's
well,
faster.
I was gonna say, because
That's our
and they
protocol
made
for
that
Chris's
mention
place.
too, that they're available 24/7.
Yes, police are.
And they will sometimes even call, SRS will sometimes call police.
But what we do for
Mhm.
the Child Advocacy
Mhm.
Center is, if any of us get a call, we call our law enforcement first, because we'll get a quicker interview than if we have to wait for their
Yeah.
intake and assessment group
Yeah,
to get
there's
through
a
it.
bit of
There
administrative
is, right.
bureaucracy, I could see
Oh,
just trying to
everything
get
about
someone
it
to
just-
come and talk here. You have a pretty good working relationship, it sounds like, with our police department. It's
all
sad
of
that
them.
the public,
We're a partner.
of course, and it's sad though that the
Law
public
enforcement and
sometimes,
SRS.
yeah.
Oh
they're
my God,
partners.
those poor,
The public
we all
have,
are.
yeah, that you just get beat up for what you're trying to do sometimes by the public. In fact, I didn't even really want to make mention,
There
but
isn't anybody
there was
that.
there was a comment on the blog where she's like, I've been in this situation and don't report it because they'll just take your kid away and they won't
bullshit.
help you and all that kind of
They
stuff.
rarely
So
take anybody away.
that's
That's
what
what
she
hacks
made a
me
point.
out.
Yeah, but
But I'm
and
saying
I didn't.
long-term psychologically for
Mhm.
children, it's better that they stay in, with their biological parents. But if you
Mhm.
cannot protect them, then they've gotta go. So,
Absolutely.
that mama did not protect her child. That's
No,
why she
no.
may not have beat him once, but the issue
Yeah.
is she did not protect her child.